Sid, a sweet, kind-hearted young woman, has always believed in true love, the kind that sweeps you off your feet, just like in fairy tales. But her life isn't quite living up to that fantasy. Working at a travel agency, she spends her days dreaming of finding her Mr. Right. Yet, despite her hopeful outlook, she has a knack for falling for the wrong guys, leaving her heart bruised and disappointed time and again. Her best friend, Liza, often teases her about her hopeless romanticism, reminding her to focus on reality. Sid, however, can't help but cling to the belief that her dream boy is out there somewhere, waiting to sweep her off her feet. Every morning, she walks into the travel agency where she works. She daydreams about escaping her mundane reality. She envisions a life filled with exotic trips and a perfect partner to accompany her on these adventures. Her coworkers, particularly her best friend Liza, often tease her for her wild romantic notions. Liza, being the pragmatic one, often tries to pull Sid back to reality, encouraging her to focus on herself and not some impossible fantasy. But despite the jokes and reality checks, Sid remains hopeful. Her heart has been bruised by past relationships, guys who either left her in the dust or simply weren't the right fit. The pain from those failed romances lingers, but it doesn't extinguish the little flame of hope she holds onto. One fateful day, while typing away at her desk, the door to the travel agency swings open, and in walks Phillip, a tall, handsome man dressed in a sleek business suit. His aura exudes confidence, power, and just the right amount of mystery to intrigue anyone. He's looking for a travel package to an exclusive island resort, and the moment their eyes meet, Sid feels a flutter she hasn't felt in a long time. Phillip is charming, polite, and effortlessly charismatic. He engages Sid in conversation about travel and life, hinting at his love for adventure, and before long, he asks her out for a casual dinner. Sid is flustered but excited. Here, standing before her, is a man who seems to have stepped right out of her dreams. A man who could be everything she's ever wanted. That evening, Phillip doesn't disappoint. He takes her to an upscale restaurant by the seaside, where they sip wine and talk under the stars. Phillip is both attentive and mysterious, and Sid can't help but feel drawn to him. He opens the door to a world she's only ever imagined, whisking her away on a spontaneous boat ride after dinner to a nearby island, where they share a private moment by the shore. Yet, amidst the excitement, there's a nagging feeling in Sid's gut. Phillip seems almost too perfect, too polished. As she stands on the beach with him, looking out at the horizon, she wonders if her dream boy is real or if she's merely projecting her fantasies onto someone who might not be all that he seems. Phillip continues to pursue Sid with all the grandeur and charm she's ever dreamed of. Their dates feel like scenes out of a romantic movie. Dinners in exclusive restaurants, surprise getaways to luxurious resorts, and intimate moments under the stars. Every time they're together, Sid feels as though she's stepped into a fantasy world, a dream she never wants to wake from. But as time passes, small cracks begin to form in the seemingly perfect facade. Phillip is evasive about his personal life, brushing off questions about his past or family. Whenever Sid tries to dig deeper, he expertly redirects the conversation, keeping things light and superficial. Despite his outward affection, Sid senses a wall around him, something he's not letting her see. One evening, during another glamorous dinner date, Phillip grows quiet, his usual confident demeanor faltering for the first time. They're sitting in a secluded section of the restaurant, the candlelight casting soft shadows across his face. He looks at her with an intensity that makes Sid's heart race, but his eyes carry a sadness she hasn't noticed before. "Sid," Phillip begins, his voice low, "I haven't been completely honest with you." Sid's breath catches in her throat as she braces herself. She suspected something was off, but hearing it confirmed is still unsettling. Phillip goes on to explain that his life isn't as perfect as it seems. He's been running from a painful past, one filled with personal failures and heartbreaks. He confesses that despite his outward success, he's haunted by his inability to truly commit to anyone, fearing that he'll hurt them or that they'll hurt him. Sid's heart aches for him, but at the same time, she feels conflicted. She's already invested so much of herself in this relationship, hoping that Phillip could be the one. But now, she's faced with the reality that the man she thought was her dream boy is deeply flawed, just like everyone else. As they leave the restaurant, Sid wrestles with her feelings. Part of her wants to stay, to help Phillip through his struggles and prove that love can heal even the deepest wounds. But another part of her wonders if she's been chasing a fantasy, ignoring the warning signs because she so desperately wanted him to be the one. Phillip's revelations weigh heavily on Sid's mind. After several emotional discussions, they mutually decide to take a break, giving Sid the space she needs to reevaluate what she truly wants in a relationship. She's heartbroken, but she knows deep down that her connection with Phillip was based more on fantasy than reality. In an effort to move on, Sid throws herself into work, taking on extra projects at the travel agency. One day, while organizing a corporate event, she meets Eboey, a quirky, fun-loving guy who immediately brings a smile to her face. He's not the suave, mysterious type like Phillip. Instead, Eboey is down to earth, always cracking jokes and living life with a carefree spirit. From the moment they meet, Sid and Eboey hit it off. Their conversations flow effortlessly, filled with laughter and playful banter. Eboey takes her on dates that are simple yet meaningful. An afternoon at a local amusement park, a spontaneous road trip to a nearby town, or late-night chats over fast food. With Eboey, Sid feels like she can let her guard down and just be herself. He's the polar opposite of Phillip. While Phillip wined and dined her in luxurious settings, Eboey shows his affection through small gestures. A surprise coffee in the morning, a handwritten note tucked in her bag, or a spontaneous serenade under the stars. Sid finds herself smiling more and worrying less. With Eboey, love feels light, easy, and fun. But as her feelings for Eboey deepen, Sid starts to wonder if this carefree relationship is what she really wants in the long term. Eboey is sweet and charming, but he doesn't seem to have the same drive or ambition as Phillip. While their time together is enjoyable, Sid can't shake the feeling that something is missing. Is love supposed to be this easy? Or should it challenge her more? Shouldn't she want a partner who pushes her to grow, who shares her ambitions and dreams? As these questions swirl in her mind, Sid realizes that her journey to finding love isn't over yet. Just as Sid begins to question her relationship with Eboey, she meets Jaime. He's the perfect blend of everything she's ever wanted in a partner. Confident, driven, and incredibly successful. From the moment Jaime enters her life, he makes it clear that he's interested in her. And unlike Phillip or Eboey, Jaime doesn't play games. Jaime is the kind of man who knows exactly what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. He's polished, articulate, and exudes an air of authority that commands attention. With his sharp intellect and ambitious outlook on life, Jaime introduces Sid to a new world. One filled with stimulating conversations, high-powered connections, and the thrill of chasing big dreams. Their first few dates are like something out of a movie. Jaime takes Sid to exclusive galas, where they rub elbows with business elites, and invites her to join him at high-profile charity events. With Jaime, Sid feels like she's part of something bigger, like she's finally moving toward the life she's always dreamed of. He's the kind of man who challenges her to think about her own ambitions, pushing her to be the best version of herself. Yet, with all of Jaime's confidence and drive, Sid begins to feel overwhelmed. He's constantly on the go, always thinking 5 steps ahead, and sometimes it feels like she's struggling to keep up. Jaime is intense, and while Sid appreciates his focus and ambition, she starts to wonder if their worlds are too different. As she navigates her relationships with Phillip, Eboey, and Jaime, Sid finds herself at a crossroads. Each man represents a different version of love. Phillip, with his mysterious charm and emotional depth. Eboey, with his carefree joy and spontaneity, and Jaime, with his confidence and stability. But as Sid reflects on her experiences with each of them, she realizes that maybe the key to her happiness isn't about finding the perfect man, but about finding herself first. After her whirlwind romances with Phillip, Eboey, and Jaime, Sid is left feeling more confused than ever. She cares about all 3 men, but something still doesn't feel right. She starts to reflect on her own desires, realizing that she's been chasing an idealized version of love, a dream boy that doesn't exist. Sid begins to understand that real love isn't about finding the perfect person, but about finding someone who complements her, someone who understands her flaws and all. She starts to see that she's been so focused on finding the right man that she's lost sight of what truly matters: her own happiness and fulfillment. In a moment of clarity, Sid decides to take a step back from all three men. She needs time to figure out who she is and what she truly wants without the influence of anyone else. It's a difficult decision, but for the first time, she feels like she's making a choice for herself, not for anyone else. Sid spends the next few months focusing on herself. She throws herself into her work, reconnects with friends, and takes time to enjoy the things she loves. She realizes that she doesn't need a man to complete her. She is enough on her own. Phillip, Eboey, and Jaime all reach out to her during this time, each wanting to rekindle their relationship. But Sid remains firm in her decision to focus on herself. She still cares for each of them, but she knows that she needs to be whole on her own before she can truly be with someone else. One day, while sitting in a cafe, Sid reflects on her journey. She thinks about how far she's come, from the hopeless romantic dreaming of her dream boy to a strong, independent woman who has learned to love herself. She smiles, feeling at peace with where she is. And just when she thinks her story is complete, she hears a familiar voice behind her. Turning around, she sees a man standing there, someone new. He's not Phillip, Eboey, or Jaime. He's someone entirely different, someone who seems to understand her in a way no one else has. Sid smiles, realizing that love may still be out there for her. But this time, she's not rushing into it. She's ready to take her time, to let love find her when she's ready. Months had passed since Sid made the choice to step back from romance and focus on herself. During this time, she grew in ways she hadn't expected. She traveled more, learned new hobbies, and even received a promotion at work. Life felt full, and for the first time, she was genuinely happy without needing someone to complete her. But despite her newfound independence, Sid couldn't deny that she still longed for love. She was no longer looking for the perfect man or the fairy tale romance she once craved. Instead, she wanted something real, someone who could love her for who she truly was, flaws and all. One evening, after a long day at work, Sid found herself at a charity gala hosted by her company. The event was held in a grand ballroom, filled with elegantly dressed people, laughter, and the soft hum of classical music. Sid didn't particularly want to attend, but her boss insisted. She mingled politely, making small talk with co-workers and clients, but her mind was elsewhere. As she stood by the refreshments table, lost in thought, a man approached her with a warm, disarming smile. "Not a fan of these events either, huh?" he said, handing her a glass of champagne. Sid looked up, meeting the eyes of the man who had spoken. He was tall, with striking features, sharp cheekbones, tousled dark hair, and a confidence that wasn't overbearing but inviting. There was something different about him, something that made Sid feel at ease. "Not really," she replied, smiling shyly. "I'm just here because it's a work thing. You?" "Same here," he said with a laugh. "I'm Max, by the way." "Sid," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but gentle, and his presence instantly made her feel comfortable. The two began talking casually, discussing everything from their favorite books to their thoughts on travel. Max had a way of listening to Sid that made her feel truly heard. He wasn't just interested in impressing her. He was genuinely curious about who she was. As the evening progressed, Sid found herself drawn to Max's authenticity. He didn't boast about himself, but as their conversation deepened, she learned that he came from a prominent family. His father was a multi-billionaire, the owner of one of the largest real estate empires in the country. Despite his wealth and status, Max was refreshingly humble. He spoke about his love for philanthropy and how he preferred to use his family's fortune to help those in need. "I don't really care for the flashy stuff," Max said, his eyes twinkling as he sipped his drink. "I've always believed that true wealth isn't measured by money, but by how much you can give back to the world." Sid was taken aback by his words. Here was a man who had everything: money, status, and privilege. Yet he was the opposite of what she expected. He wasn't arrogant or entitled. Instead, he was compassionate, down to earth, and driven by a genuine desire to make a difference in the world. Max was unlike anyone she had ever met. Over the next few weeks, Sid and Max grew closer. They went on dates, but unlike the whirlwind romances she'd experienced before, this felt different. Max didn't sweep her off her feet with grand gestures or extravagant outings. Instead, he made her feel special with his attentiveness, kindness, and thoughtfulness. One night, they had a simple dinner at a quaint little restaurant by the sea. As they sat on the patio, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Max reached for Sid's hand. "You know," he said softly, "I've met a lot of people in my life, but there's something about you that feels different. It's like I can be myself around you." Sid smiled, feeling her heart flutter. "I feel the same way about you." Max leaned in, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I don't want to rush anything, but I think I'm falling for you, Sid. You're unlike anyone I've ever met." Sid's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected to feel this way so soon, but she couldn't deny the connection she felt with Max. He was everything she had been searching for: kind, genuine, and grounded. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of falling in love. With Max, it felt right. "I think I'm falling for you too," Sid whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Max smiled and gently pulled her into a kiss, sealing the beginning of their love story. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was slow, steady, and full of mutual respect, a love built on trust and understanding. As the months passed, Sid and Max's relationship blossomed. They spent time traveling, enjoying quiet evenings together, and sharing their dreams for the future. Sid felt more at peace than she ever had before. Max didn't just love her for her appearance or because of some fairy tale notion of romance. He loved her for who she was: flawed, imperfect, but real. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Max's family estate, watching the stars above, Max turned to her with a serious expression. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Sid," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion. "You've shown me what real love is, and I can't imagine my future without you in it." Sid's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. She had spent so long searching for love, believing in the idea of a dream boy. And now, she realized that the true dream was finding someone who loved her for exactly who she was. Max was that person. "I love you, Max," she whispered, tears of happiness welling up in her eyes. Max pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a stunning engagement ring. "Will you marry me, Sid?" Overwhelmed with emotion, Sid nodded, unable to speak as tears streamed down her face. Max slipped the ring on her finger, and they embraced, both knowing that they had found something truly special, a love that wasn't a fantasy, but a beautiful, real-life dream come true. Sid and Max's wedding was a beautiful celebration of love, surrounded by family and friends. It wasn't a grand, over-the-top event. It was intimate and heartfelt, just like their relationship. As they exchanged vows, Sid couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had spent so long searching for her dream boy, only to realize that the real dream wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who accepted her, loved her for who she was, and stood by her through thick and thin. Max was her dream, not because he was wealthy or handsome, but because he was kind, genuine, and loved her unconditionally. As they danced under the stars, surrounded by the people they loved most, Sid finally understood what true happiness felt like. She wasn't just living a fairy tale. She was living her own version of happily ever after, one built on love, trust, and mutual respect. And in that moment, as Max twirled her around the dance floor, Sid knew that she had found not just her dream boy, but the love of her life. Together, they would write their own story, one filled with laughter, love, and a lifetime of happiness. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.